Starfield. Everything we know about this game comes to us in the form of concept art, screenshots, developer interviews, and if we're lucky, a few seconds of gameplay. But out of the 1,000 explorable planets in Starfield, there is one place where we've actually seen a whole 4 minutes of footage. A little moon called Kreet. Despite our extended look at this location in the 2022 gameplay showcase, we're still left with one big question. Why are we on Kreet? Well, we may already know the answer. Welcome to Starfield Investigations. This is RPG RX. In real life, I'm a pharmacist, but in Starfield, I will soon be Constellation's first xenopharmacologist, searching the Starfield for alien compounds that can cure the incurable and expand the limits of our minds and bodies. Like many of you, I've been waiting a long time for Starfield, which means I've had plenty of time to daydream about my custom spaceship fitted with the science hab that lets me analyze specimens of all the diverse flora and fauna I found in my travels. I've also had plenty of time to analyze that gameplay showcase, and I was surprised to find that I didn't have to wait at all to begin my interstellar research. Today, let's travel forward to Sol date May 7, 2330, where we can explore a promising discovery on the moon of Kreet. In our first official look at Starfield gameplay, Todd Howard narrates our arrival on Kreet's rocky lunar surface.
According to the scanners, the abandoned research facility is in this direction.
At this point, all we know is that we're looking for a research facility that's been abandoned. Interestingly, when we find that facility a few moments later, we find that we're not the only ones looking for this lab.
It would appear that pirates of the Crimson Fleet are using the facility.
By the way he says this, it seems that the presence of pirates here is a surprise to the player, rather than the reason the player is here. So, if we're not here to hunt pirates, why are we here? And why are the pirates here? Well, the answer is probably inside. As we enter the facility with the weapons drawn, we catch glimpses at something very rare in video games. Concern for occupational hazards. There is clear signage all over this lab warning visitors of biohazards and restricted areas. Zooming in on this sign specifically, we can tell that something nearby is considered a biohazard level 1 pathogen. It warns us to use protective equipment. Good thing we're still in our spacesuit. But what exactly are these signs warning us about? What are they researching on Kreet? In the next room, we take down some unsuspecting pirates who seem to be analyzing a large biomass in a glass display. Apparently, Todd isn't interested in showing us much of what's inside, as we never stop for a better look. Further inside, we make it to a red-lit room that gives us a better glimpse at exactly what they were studying here. As we enter, the first thing to catch our eye is a gun box that we can digipick. Perhaps this is something the researchers kept on standby in case their experiments got out of hand. In fact, there are some other clues in this room that can actually tell us what their experiments were. To the right, we see a large glass case, which is called a compounding aseptic isolator. In real life, these isolators are used to compound hazardous materials, especially chemo medications that we use to treat cancer. Unfortunately, we don't get a good look at the dark tissue sample beneath the gloves. The last object of note in this room is a whiteboard filled with very detailed illustrations. Let's zoom in to see what we can piece together about what's happening in this lab. Okay, so there is a lot going on this whiteboard, and at first glance, it looks like sciencey nonsense. Plus, many of the words on this whiteboard are pretty blurry. Shout out to YouTuber Starfield Signal for uploading an 8K version of this gameplay showcase. It makes this quite a bit more legible when I zoom in. Now, using context clues and a scientific background, we can start to understand this image a bit more. Okay, so the title reads Experimental Analysis of the Selected Clone Cell. Below it, the numbers 1 through 5 seem to denote the steps of their experiment. Step 1 reads, heterogeneous cells to be extracted from captured specimen, followed by a depiction of multiplying cells. The captured specimen is probably the alien drawn here, and these cells might have been extracted from the sample that's inside these isolators. Step 2 reads, tumor growth, in vitro versus in vivo. In vitro means performed in a test tube or elsewhere outside of a living organism, and fittingly, you can see an arrow pointing from those words to the beakers. In vivo means performed inside a living organism and points to the creature. To me, this sounds like they are comparing tumor growth in the beakers to tumor growth in the creature. Steps 3 through 5 are pretty hard to read, and I can only make out the word selective at step 3. However, the object by step 3 seems to be a tumor resulting from the beakers, aka the in vitro arm of the experiment. And it even brings to mind the tumor-like mass shown in the display case downstairs. Adding all these steps together, it seems pretty clear that the researchers are comparing cancer grown in the lab versus cancer grown in the captured specimen. There is one more illustration I want to point out, and that's the chemical structures shown to the left. For those familiar with the nucleic acids that make up DNA, you might recognize these structures. And the color-coded key to the right of the creature assures us that we are in fact looking at the 4 basic letters of DNA: guanine in red, cytosine in blue, adenine in green, and thymine, which apparently wasn't assigned a color. The other words in the key only help confirm our findings. So, now that we've deciphered the key, can we draw any conclusions about the molecules on the left? Perhaps they reveal the very mutation causing the tumors in this alien. To answer this, let's look at how these 4 letters work in our DNA. Our DNA is basically 2 strings of letters, which can be either C, G, T, or A, and these strings are bound together by a matching pair. In normal DNA, C is always paired with G, and T is always paired with A. Back to the whiteboard, we can see that the chemical structures of the 4 nucleic acids line up exactly as we would predict. Adenine binds with thymine, guanine binds with cytosine. So this DNA seems perfectly normal to me. No tumor-creating mutations here. I'm guessing this is just a very detailed set dressing from the developers. But they did make one critical error. The color of these drawn molecules do not match at all with the color key. You were so close, Bethesda, so close. Colorblind scientists aside, it's little details like this whiteboard, thrown into the background of a room you were only meant to see for a few seconds, that are one of the main reasons why I love Bethesda games. The developers clearly put in a lot of effort to make a well-illustrated and nearly realistic experiment that provided us a sneak peek into the lore of this world. In summary, it looks like the UC researchers came to Kreet, found a 6-limbed alien creature, and decided to run tests with it to learn more about cancer. Cool, but without understanding the results, it's hard to tell why this is important enough to send someone across the galaxy to uncover. Were they on the verge of a scientific breakthrough? Well, we already know that the player will be able to use the resources they've gathered to carry out research, even pharmacologic research that would require the containment of a level 3 highly dangerous biohazard. Perhaps we're meant to finish what the Kreet researchers started by taking a sample of this alien tumor and using it to create a new type of cancer-fighting medicine. That's what I'd personally like to believe. But maybe there was a reason the Kreet Lab was left abandoned, even before the Crimson Fleet arrived. What if the experiment went wrong? To support this theory, we need only to look a little further in the gameplay showcase. Here, we see a 6-limbed creature, lit by a familiar red light, attacking the player. The bone-like shoulders, the 6 limbs, and the same red-lit environment suggest that this fight takes place in the same Kreet research lab, and we are fighting the very subject of the cancer experiment. If this theory is true, it's no wonder the facility was abandoned. This could suggest that we are here as an exterminator, reclaiming the facility by killing off each mutated specimen in order for research to continue. Or, considering the warnings about pathogens, maybe these creatures would be considered diseased, and it's our job to put them down before their disease spreads across the galaxy. After all, We have seen diseased creatures on other planets, more than once. But there's one thing that still doesn't add up. Why is the Crimson Fleet here on Kreet? There's not much evidence to conclude why they are here, but it's clear that once we make it onto the rooftop, Brogan and crew are calling in reinforcements to maintain control of this facility. Since all we know about the Crimson Fleet is that they are essentially a loose confederation of space pirates, perhaps their only goal was to loot the lab. After all, much of the lab equipment could be sold, and the lab itself could even be retrofitted to produce illicit drugs. There is one last hint at our mission's objective that we can see in the top left corner. One small step. This update reveals the title of our mission to Kreet, next to a pretty generic looking quest symbol. This could simply allude to the fact that this is the player's first time touching down on a lunar surface, much like the Apollo 11 astronauts, whose famous quotes inspired this mission's title. Is there more to it than that? Maybe not, but the fact that we got an update as soon as combat begins may indicate that stopping the Crimson Fleet has become the next small step. For now, we don't know anything for sure about our true purpose on Kreet, but perhaps all things will be revealed when we visit Kreet ourselves later this year. Thanks for watching to the end of this video. I can't wait to hear from all of you who play the game day one and discover that my predictions are totally wrong. If any of you can make out the blurry words on that whiteboard, let me know what they say in the comments below. This is a brand new channel, so be sure to subscribe if you want to see more interesting discoveries in Starfield. I can't wait to play this game with you all. But until then, have fun riding the hype with me. Bye!